Hey, what up, y'all? Welcome to today's episode of Straight Up Podcast. This will change your life overnight. Now, I want to be clear when I say that, okay? The results of your change might not show up overnight. They probably won't show up overnight. But making a choice to change, that can happen overnight, right? You can decide to say, I'm no longer going to be this version of myself. And you can really stand on that and live by that. Your life changes overnight. You can say, I'm never going back to that situation ever again. Your life will change overnight. You can say, you know what? Starting tonight, I'm going to live like this. I'm not going to negotiate with myself anymore. And I want to just talk about that for a moment. Too many of us, and I'm going to be really transparent with you. Like, I had this encounter with myself last night, and I'm going to tell you about kind of, where I'm at personally. But I found myself negotiating with myself. Right? Negotiating with something that I knew was going to help my life, negotiating with my greatness, negotiating with my progression. And I realized a lot of us, we do that. We negotiate with things that's going to better our life. We negotiate with things that are going to help our life. I want to tell you right now, man, if you want to change your life, no more negotiations on the things that you know are going to better your life, right? Some things should be non-negotiable. Living your best life should be non-negotiable. Right? Selling for your in life no more, like no longer selling your life should be non-negotiable. Getting around the right people, the right mindsets, right? That should be non-negotiable. Like, it has to be things that you stand on that you're not negotiating on no more, because some of us, what we have done, we've negotiated too much. We have lessened ourselves because we negotiated. We've allowed people to stay in our life that didn't deserve to stay there because we negotiated. We lived a lesser version of ourselves because we negotiated. We lived a settled version of ourselves because we negotiated. We're not living the life that we're meant to live. Why? Because we negotiated. And some of you, like I did to myself last night, I'm going to share, some of you need to create a massive disruption in your life, okay? And especially in these 5 areas that we're going to talk about today, but you need to create a massive disruption in your life. Some of you have been on this same pattern, I hate to say this word, but I'm going to say it, of average. This same pattern of settling for less. This same pattern of feeling sorry for yourself. This same pattern of excuses. You have to wake up and disrupt your life, right? If this cycle is not favorable to you, if this cycle that you're on, leaving, coming back to the same reasons, starting something just not to finish something, right? If it's not favorable for you, if this cycle is not progressing you, but it's actually keeping you in a place that you don't want to be, you have to break this damn cycle by creating a massive disruption in your life. Okay, and we're going to talk about how you exactly do that today. But I'm going to be real, like life gives us these disruptions all the time. And when life gives it to you, it isn't always favorable, right? Maybe somebody dies in your family. Maybe the job fires you, right? It sucks. But I do know this. When it's powerful is when we create it. And last night at 12 a.m. at night, I decided to create a massive disruption in my life because I was sitting there thinking and like, man, I am not where I need to be. And if you can't be real with yourself, see, some of us, we get into our feelings. Like we feel like, oh, I'm talking down on myself. No, you're not. You're being real with yourself. It's okay to say, man, I'm not where I need to be. Because the greatest accountability doesn't come from the outside world. It comes from your inside self. When you can hold yourself accountable. And I was laying there, I was like, man, when I look at my life in these 5 areas that we're going to talk about, I'm like, man, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not feeling my best. And so what I did was, and the past can be great when you reflect on the past. I don't believe the past is a place that we should always live in, right? Because we can't change that. But the past is a beautiful place for you to go back and reflect, especially if there was a time in your past that was great, when you were living your best life. So maybe you have to go back to high school. Maybe you have to go back to a few years ago. For me, it was 2019. Right? I looked at pictures of 2019. I saw me living my best life holistically, right? There's some things right now that I'm doing better than I was then, but holistically as a whole, I was living my best life. So I said, man, what was I doing then that I'm not doing now? And I was able to say, okay, cool. Let's go back to these things that I stopped doing, because obviously those things that I were doing, it left clues. Success leaves clues. Growth leaves clues. It's not rocket science. And so I sat down with myself as I was laying in bed, and I was like, I need a massive disruption. So I said, one of the things that I did in 2019 is I was going to the gym. Now I have my own home gym. I have everything in my house, but I don't know if y'all remember the episode during COVID or during the pandemic when I talked about how environments hold energy, right? So in my house, I have great energy in my house, but I needed to get outside of my house. And it's about to be wintertime. I have a garage gym. So it was the perfect storm because I hate the cold. So I'm like, let me go back to getting this gym membership because it was something about going to the gym that made me more consistent with staying loyal to my goals, with staying loyal to the things that I said I wanted in my life. And it also started off my day right because I was getting out the house. When I'm in the house, I can be like, oh, I'll do it in an hour. Then an hour turns into 2 hours and 2 hours turn into tomorrow. So I say, you know what? Let me buy this gym membership. Let me invest in myself because I don't like to waste money. So I did it. At that moment, I did it. I didn't negotiate with myself. I did it. I said, let's do it. So I said, you know what? Tomorrow, one of the things that I did was, and we're going to talk about these 5 things. So stay with me. I'm just kind of giving you some context of how I got back to these 5 things because these 5 things will freaking change your life. So I'm laying there, I said, man, in 2019, what else was I doing at a high level? Well, I was doing yoga, hot yoga, which is the fountain of youth to me. And so I was doing, I said, okay, let me go back to doing yoga in the morning. So I went to the gym. I looked on the app. They had a yoga class at 5:15. So I wanted to negotiate with myself at that moment. I was like, you know what? I can just wait till Thursday. And at 5:15 is a little bit early. It's 12 o'clock. I'm only going to get 5 hours of sleep. I need my 8 hours of sleep. And I believe in sleep. I believe in rest. But I was negotiating with myself. And I knew that I needed to shock my life. Right? I'm not a morning person. I'm a sunrise person. I'm like a kind of morning person, but I'm not, it's still dark outside type of morning person. You know what I mean? So I needed to shock my life. I needed to disrupt this pattern that I was used to, this pattern that really wasn't leading me into being the best me, the pattern that the cycle that really wasn't producing my best life. It was producing a good life. It was producing a okay life. It was producing a just getting by life, but it wasn't producing a great life. Right? My max out life. It wasn't producing that. So I say, you know, I need to create this massive disruption. And I was negotiating with myself. I was like 5:15. I got to get it back, 4:30. I'm not going to get this late. And then what I did, I'm going to be real with y'all. Right? I could easily say I didn't do this, but y'all know me. I'm going to be transparent like I'm going to tell you what I did. I negotiated with myself and I talked myself out of it. I say, you know what? I can go Wednesday or Thursday and I can just stick with the home workout tomorrow. And I turned off my alarm. I went to sleep. I'm going to tell you how life has a funny way of keeping you loyal to your goals and your standards and your vision when it's really important in your life. So I went to sleep. I woke up and I was having a deep dream. I forgot what I was dreaming about, but it was something crazy. It was a deep dream. I was like a hero in an action movie type of dream. And I didn't want to wake up from it because I was the hero. I was kicking zombies' butts and I digress. But I was having a great dream. And I wake up. And when I wake up, I just know that it's like, the sun is rising later in Texas. So like the sun rises like at 7:45. So I just know it's like 7 a.m. I'm like, cool, 7 a.m. I go pee. This might be TMI, but I'm getting up to go pee. And usually I go pee at like 3 sometimes. So I'm like, I know it's not 3. I don't feel like 3. I'm way too rested to be 3 o'clock for over 3 hours of sleep. So I walk to the bathroom. I do my business. I go pee. I get back in the bed. I happen to check my phone. And I'm like, man, well, before I even check my phone, I'm like, man, I'm wide awake. So let me go ahead and get up. I check my phone and it is 3:45 a.m. in the morning. It's 3:45. And I just laughed because I am wide awake. There is no going to sleep. I don't know why I was wide awake, but I was wide awake. It's like my life knew what I needed. It's like God said, hey, okay, you want to negotiate with myself? Well, I'm not negotiating with you. So make a long story short, I went to the gym at 4 o'clock. It opened at 4. I got in my workout. I got in my rehab. I did my yoga. I went home. I went live. I brought the family some breakfast. I did all the things, like all the things. And I'm not saying I'm going to continue to wake up at 4 a.m., but I needed that disruption. And that's the whole point of me telling you that. Like I was in a funk, but I needed that disruption. And a lot of us, it's like you have a destination, right? You have a destination in the car and you have put in Google Maps or you have put in Apple Maps. And when you make the wrong turn or you're not going towards your destination, what happens? Siri comes up, or whoever it is comes up and says, wrong way, make a U-turn. They're switching directions to get you back on track. And a lot of us, we have that internal Siri, right? We have that internal thing that's saying, you know what, you're not going in the right direction. You're not going in the direction that you should be going. You're not going in the direction of your destination. You're actually going in the direction of regression in your life, not progression. But a lot of us, what we do is we ignore that and we keep going down the wrong way. So I want to challenge you as we go through these 5 things. I want to challenge you, if you want to change your life overnight, to make the U-turn right now and get back on track. Make the U-turn and get back on track to your best life. Get back on track to your goals. Get back on track to finishing what you started. Get back on track to continuing that business. Get back on track to your standards. Get back on track to your principles. Get back on track to keeping the right energy in your life. All it takes is a U-turn. That's all it takes to get us back on track. It's nothing major. We think that change is some major thing that we make. It's often the smallest decision and choices that create the major changes in our life. So I want to challenge each and every one of you to be a disruption in these 5 areas that I'm going to talk about. And I can guarantee you this. If you can take these 5 things that we're talking about to level 10s in your life, or level 8s, level 7s from a scale from 1 to 10, your life will change. Your life will change overnight because your mindset will change overnight. And that's the first change that we have to create. When your mindset changes overnight, then guess what? That harvest will come in your life at some point. That change has to surrender. That growth has to surrender. That progression has to surrender. But a lot of us, we don't stay loyal to it because we have no patience in the process. No patience in the process. So of course, the change is going to show up overnight, but the change takes place overnight. I want to talk about these 5 areas that I had to check myself on, because these 5 areas, some of these things I were doing okay, but some of these things I was failing miserably in these areas. And my life reflected on that. Number one, you have to start living with intentionality in your life. Okay, this is number 1. These are 5 things. If you check in with these 5 things, you're going to live your best life. You're going to live your best life. You're going to have peace in your life. You're going to have confidence in your life because you are doing the things that your soul needs you to do. You are doing the things that your life needs you to do. You're doing the things that actually energize you. Number 1, I'm super hyped right now. Number 1, intentionality. So many people, let me put this on myself first. I wasn't living in consistent intentionality. What does that mean? Is I wasn't being intentional with my day. I wasn't being intentional with my time. I wasn't being intentional with my presence, etc., etc. And when you're not being intentional, you know what happens is you do random stuff. I would say another word right there, but I'm going to keep it PG-13 because somebody ran up on me the other day and they were in high school. They say, listen to my podcast. So I'm going to make sure not to say any words that my mom will get mad at me saying. But a lot of us, we do random stuff. And when you do random, you get random. You know, a lot of us, we wake up and we just go with the flow. You can't go with the flow because sometimes the flow isn't always flowing in the direction that you need it to flow, right? Sometimes the flow isn't flowing into your life what you need and we just go with the flow. No, sometimes you got to stop the flow and create a new flow. And the only way you create a new flow is you start living in intentionality. Everything that you do is on purpose. Everything that you do is for purpose. Everything that you do is purpose. If there's no purpose in it, free yourself from it. Do you hear me? If there's no purpose in it, free yourself from it. If that relationship, that friendship, that partnership has no purpose in it, free yourself from it. That habit, if it has no purpose in it, free yourself from it. How you spending your time, if it has no purpose in it, free yourself from it. That environment, if it has no purpose in it, free yourself from it. Because when you don't live intentionally in your life, you do random stuff. And when you do random stuff, you get a random result. And your life is all over the place. So I need you right now to lock in and dial in every single moment of your life, okay? And I know that seems very intense, but every single moment of your life needs to hold purpose throughout your day. And if you can operate your day as soon as you wake up with intention, knowing what you're going to get from this day, you might not know exactly what life's going to give you, but you for sure can know what you want from this day. One of my main things is that I want to give purpose. I want to create purpose. I want to breathe purpose every single day. I want to do some things. I don't want to give the next few things away, but I want to do a lot of things that I want to get done throughout my day, right? I want to be a servant I want to give value every single day. I'm going to be intentional with my day, because when you're intentional with your day, you will live an intentional life. And an intentional life is one of the most powerful lives. So if you're still doing random, as far as even social media, some of us, the first thing we wake up is we do random. You on social media unconscious. You're not even conscious of why you on there. You got to know what you going in there for. With everything that you do, know why your time is being spent here. Because when you truly understand that time ain't promised, I know y'all hear that, but some of y'all need to feel this. When time ain't guaranteed, when time ain't promised to you, you realize that you ain't got no time to waste. And some of us have been living a wasted life because we've been wasting our time with people who waste our time, with things that waste our time. But when you're intentional, you ever been somewhere where you know you only got, I do this a lot. Matter of fact, and I'm going to move on to the next next four. I do this a lot because it makes me be super intentional. I will literally go work out at a time that I know that I have to be done with. Like, I don't like working out when I don't have nothing to do after, right? When I can I can be here for 2 hours, 1 hour, whatever. Or even when I used to run, better yet, I would run, and one of my things that held me like super accountable and kept me focused on my run even when I got tired, I would schedule my run right before I had to go pick up my kids from school. So say I had to pick up my kids at school at 3 p.m., I would go schedule my run at 2, and I knew I had to be done, right? I knew that 3 mile run in the trails would take about 40 minutes. I knew I couldn't stop. I knew I couldn't do random stuff. I knew I had to get it done because why? There was something after that I had to show up for, that I had to be on time for. And so I've taken that same type of formula to my life. You know what I mean? So even throughout my day, I'm always telling myself the next thing, I got to be intentional with my day and with my time, because the next thing requires my presence, requires me to be on time. Okay, so that's just a little hack to keep you more intentional. But if your life is not intentional, you're not going to live your fullest life. Okay, so number 1, have more intentionality. Okay, number 2, connectivity. This is one of the things that connection powers your life. Okay, you got to start having connectivity every single day. Connect to your purpose, right? Connect to the things that matter. Connect to your family. Connect to your community. Connect to your mission. A lot of times when we're not living a powerful life, or we're not living a peaceful life, is because we're connected to the wrong stuff. We're connected to other people's lives. We're connected to gossip. We're connected to random. We're not connected to the things that really fuel and that fuel our soul and make our souls feel full. We're not connected to those things. So every single day, connect with the things that matter, right? Connect with your mission. Connect with your dream. Connect with the people that you care about. Because when you connect to the right things, it powers your life. You know, when you connect to the wrong things, life sucks. Life feels like a burden. And even with my injury, there's a lot of times throughout this injury process where I've been connected to the wrong things. And I didn't feel vibrant about life. I didn't feel energized about life because I wasn't connecting to my power sources. You know what I mean? You should have power sources that you know when you plug into it, whoo, your energy goes through the roof. Your focus goes through the roof. Your state changes, right? You have no choice but to change as soon as you plug into those things. So what are those things that you need to plug into that will change you, that will power you, that will energize you? You got to be clear on that. Number 3, okay? Number 3, creativity. Creativity is very important, right? So we need to be intentional, live in intentionality. We need to have connectivity. Daily, we need to dive into our creativity. Creativity is, how can I put this? It's everything to your soul. It's everything to your mind. As human beings, we are creative beings. You know, I'm not trying to get too deep, but I believe God is the greatest creator ever. And I believe we are descendants of God, right? Like we are from God. God created us, right? We're his masterpieces. And in that, we are creators too. And some of you listening to my voice right now, the reason why you don't feel fulfilled about life and excited about life is because you stop creating and you start accepting. You start accepting something that wasn't for your life and you made it a part of your life. You start accepting less. You start accepting the status quo. You start accepting these wrong things that has literally killed your creative spirit. And so what I need you to do right now is I need you to get back to creating every single day. And creating doesn't have to mean some speech online. It ain't got to mean a book. It don't have to mean nothing crazy. Maybe a part of your creativity is making your kids lunch. Maybe that sparks the creativeness in your mind. Maybe it's making up your bed, a part of creativity. Maybe it's, writing something out. Like, I don't want to limit you with your creativity, but creativity is limitless. It don't have to be anything crazy, but a lot of us, we don't connect to it anymore. And we wonder why we don't feel alive. Creativity makes you feel alive. Creativity makes you feel valued. It makes you feel like, man, there's a reason for my life. So every single day, when I wasn't feeling excited about life, I wasn't creating. I was accepting. I stopped creating and I felt stale because I just felt like, man, like there's something missing from my life. And that's what it was. When you create, your mind expands. And so every single day, I create. Whether it's doing a podcast like this, whether it's writing something out, whether it's doing something else that y'all will never know about. Because sometimes creativity doesn't have to be for other people. It's always for yourself. Sometimes other people benefit from it, but it should always be for you. You shouldn't create for other people if it's not something that you want to do, because then you're not creating, you're just working. And that's a difference. So get back to creating. You're a spirit that is meant to create. Your spirit is yearning for creation. Your spirit feels alive when you create. Get back to that creativity. That's number 3. Number 4. This is a big one, and I don't want to spend too much time. I'm not a personal trainer. But number 4 is mobility. If you can tap in with mobility every single day, and mobility is what you want it to look like. It could be walking, it could be jogging, it could be stretching, it could be running a marathon, it could be your mind mobility, right? It could be yoga, it could be meditation, whatever it is for you. Get back to being mobile in your life. When you stand still, so will everything else. When you stand still, everything else will be at a standstill. And so, yes, there is times to be patient. There is times to wait. There is times to disconnect. But for the sake of today's podcast, when we stop moving, we stop giving our life what it needs. So as I said earlier in this podcast, a part of me going to the gym is creating that mobility. It's getting a different environment. It's awakening my mind. It's shifting my perspective. It's giving me all these things that I need. And even from a standpoint of like mobility, actually, as far as fitness wise, a lot of us are constricted. A lot of us are stressed. We see our shoulders. A lot of us are tight. I went to yoga today and I realized like my shoulders holding so much stress. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can barely hold my shoulders over my head. I was holding so much stress in my body because I wasn't moving my body as much anymore since I had my injury. And I realized, man, as I move my body and open up my body, my mind tends to open. As I open up my body, my life tends to open. I just feel more expanded instead of constricted. So I want to challenge you to practice mobility. So even if that mobility is meditation, where you take your mind on a journey, even if that mobility is actually stretching, where you open up your body, which is the fountain of youth, even if that mobility is lifting weights, whatever it may be, don't stand still, move your body. Because when you move, you change your mood. When you move, you change your mood. When you stand still, you become stale, like the bread that's been sitting out, not moving, not being ate. That's just stale. That's what happens to our soul. It becomes stale when we stop moving. Okay, so number 4 is have more mobility in your life. Every single day, say, I'm going to move today. And that movement could be a business move. That movement could be a physical move. That movement could be an emotional move. Whatever, just make sure you're moving. Okay, because if you're not growing, you are dying. If you're not progressing, you are dying. Maybe not a physical death, but you're definitely dying an emotional and spiritual one, which brings me to number 5. Connecting to your spirituality. Okay, so let's just go over this right quick. Number 1 is intentionality. Number 2, you got to have connectivity every single day. Number 3, you got to have creativity every single day. Number 4, you got to have mobility every single day. And number 5 is tapping into your spirit man or spirit woman. Spirituality is very important. There's times throughout this process, if I'm being totally transparent, where I wasn't connecting to my spirit man, as I like to call myself, as much as I should, right? I kind of got off track. I kind of got off of, I don't want to say routine, because I don't want to say it, even though it is a routine, these things are routines, but I don't want to make it like it's just, there's no power in it, right? It's a power routine. I got myself off of that power routine. I stopped doing the things that I know I needed to do in order to be the person that I needed to be. And so me being intentional every single day to connect to my spirit man has brought a sense of peace in my life. You already know how I feel about peace. Peace is everything. So for me, and a lot of y'all experience this with me, it's me taking in the sunrise. My walks with God in the morning, my walks with God at night, even though that's a part of mobility, but it's also me spending time connecting to my spirit. Me getting in my word, me meditating, me sitting in prayer. We got to feed our spirit, y'all. Some of our spirits are depleted. Some of our spirits are tired. Some of our spirits are weary. Some of our spirits want to give up because we're not feeding, we're not nourishing our spirit. And sometimes nourishing your spirit is resting. Sometimes nourishing your spirit is disconnecting. Sometimes nourishing your spirit is being in isolation, so you can just be with yourself. And I would encourage you with spirituality, you need to have that time by yourself every single day, whether it's 5 minutes or 20 minutes. Time when you can connect to you, and so you can listen to your soul and be able to give your soul, what your soul needs. Your soul is speaking to you. It's time for you to listen. And so if you do these 5 things every single day, I promise you, your life will change overnight. You will be a better person. You will be a better human. You will be a better you. You will be more excited about life. And it's because I know it's common sense. Yes, I'm a common sense expert. I get it. I know it's common sense, but we ignore these things so much. But if we get back to the basics of just living an intentional life, if we get back to the basics of just connecting with the things that truly power us the right way, if we get back to the basics of living in our greatest gift, which is our creativity, if we get back to the basics of moving our life, getting back to mobility, if we get back to the basics of the spirit, really tapping into our spirituality, your life has no choice but to become better. But I'll tell you what happens as we leave here today. These things are so simple, we ignore it. Because oftentimes we can't see the physical evidence of how important these things are. So we don't prioritize these things. And because we don't prioritize these things, we leave these things up to random. And when we leave things up to random, we do what? We get what? That's right. We get a random life. And a random life is probably not the life that you want. So I want you to get back to the life that you deserve by disrupting whatever cycle, whatever pattern that you're currently in by doing these 5 things. And you can start that today. And at the end of the day, when you do your reflective therapy, as I call it, when you reflect on your day, you just go down the list and say, from a 1 to 10, how intentional was I? From a 1 to 10, how connected was I? From a 1 to 10, how creative was I? From a 1 to 10, how mobile was I? From a 1 to 10, how spiritually was I? And if you can get those things to about a 7 or 8, life will be great. But like I say at the end of every single episode, it all starts with you. It's rehab time. Let's get it. Straight up.